It's been 18 years since the Omen remake was released, a movie equivalent of dirty dishwater that's been sitting out in the hot sun for a week. So the bar was nice and low for a brand new prequel, which actually seemed to generate some buzz upon release. Let's discuss The First Omen. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Trick or treat.
It is the finale of the Octoberthon, meaning that when this goes out for the public, this is actually going to be on Halloween itself.
Ooh.
And we basically decided, since we're working through the Omen franchise, I think the second episode we did was the first Omen movie. It made sense to end with the new Omen movie because this is what we've been building up to all month. So today we discuss this year's release of The First Omen. So of course we will start spoiler free, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get the spoilers. And of course, if you are enjoying the show, do hit the like button on YouTube. It helps out a bunch if you do. You can also get some bonus content over in Patreon or via YouTube membership. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the show. Oh, that was smooth. That was a smooth one, that today, Tim.
You're on your A game.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, we've had our ups and downs. I mean, we had an up, and then we had a considerably less up.
Are you talking about the podcast?
No, the Omen franchise, Tim.
Oh, okay. I was like, yeah, I guess we've had our ups and downs.
Yeah, no, the last couple of Omen movies have been pretty rough, particularly the remake, which... Yeah. I mean, it is worth mentioning here. The remake to this one was an 18-year difference. It took 18 years to make another Omen movie. There was a TV season, to be fair, and I know, but still. Yes, what do you say?
It's going to make a very dumb joke.
That's not the Tim I know.
Yeah.
You make a dumb joke? I can't believe that. I mean, honestly, I don't know what to say premise-wise. I feel like getting into much would be spoiling things. I went in completely blind, to be honest. What I will say, though... Yes?
You're blind.
I don't know why I expected better. Maybe because you resisted the first dumb joke. I thought maybe you'll resist some more, but no, apparently that wasn't to be. No, I will say this. It is wild that this and Immaculate came out almost at the same time.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
It's because it's absolutely nuts. Once this started to get going, I went, wait, this has got a lot of... do you get new young nun arriving in Italy? Oh wait, that's just like Immaculate. Obviously the plot goes in some places. I don't want to spoil either movie here, but there's definitely some parallels. There's definitely things to compare. Super weird. It's very much a Dante's Peak and Volcano style of coincidence. Or at least in that case, though, I could believe that one studio heard the other was doing a volcano movie and sort of rushed one into production. This genuinely feels like a complete coincidence.
You know, someone at one of those meetings was like, I heard volcanoes are very hot right now. What, you don't think that happened?
Tim, what did you think of The First Omen?
Yeah, so this was kind of a weird one because... I don't know if you remember, but I feel like it kind of came out of nowhere. Like a lot of times, especially like with big franchise movies, you'll hear like far in advance, like, oh, like, this is coming back and this person's doing it. And it's not like it was literally released and we didn't know. Like, we had heard about it, but I feel like it was just kind of randomly, like maybe we were doing the, like a start of the year episode or something. We're like, oh, like a new Omen movie is coming out. And then, I don't think a ton of people had a lot of, hope for it. Like you said, it's been a long time since the last one, and the, last one was pretty god awful. So, I think I kind of assumed this would just be something that would just come and go. But lo and behold, like it actually got some pretty good reviews and people are talking about it, and it was getting some buzz early on in the year when it came out. So I was coming in with, a fair amount of hype. I was pretty excited to watch it. And I don't know, I kind of think it was just like okay / good. I didn't really think it was great. I don't know, maybe if a little bit was the hype or a little bit was, you know, kind of seeing Immaculate first and, you know, maybe eating its lunch a little bit. I don't think it's like particularly bad or awful in any significant way. I think, you know, the performers are good. You know, I think it looks fairly good. The director seems, you know, not too bad. I think I didn't check their IMDb, but I think I heard that they were like known for that show, Brand New Cherry Flavor. I want to say, which
they seem to have directed like a bunch of episodes for multiple shows.
Okay.
Notably, I think all of season 3 of Channel Zero.
Oh, okay. Wait, which one was Channel 3? That was that the one with the door in the woods?
I think so. Yeah, the staircase. Yeah,
that was a bad season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I never saw the fourth one, but out of the 3 I saw, that was the bad one.
But I don't know. But I mean, you know, I thought this was directed fine. But I don't know. I just like I didn't love it, and I don't know if part of it is like, or if part of the reason why people seem so high on it was just the fact that it's like, oh, it's, you know, this late entry franchise movie that kind of came out of nowhere, and it's kind of not terrible. Like that's, you know, already kind of doing some work, but I don't know. I don't feel like too passionate about it. I didn't hate it, but I really like wasn't over the moon about it. I think that a big part of it is I just don't really care too much about like what's happening. Like, I don't know, like it, you know, it's a prequel. I don't think we really needed this story to be told. There's a lot of like, I don't think it commits like the sins as badly as like other prequel movies where it's like referencing the first one a ton and stuff. But there is things that's like, okay, I get it. This is kind of like, you know, maybe similar to a scene in the first movie, or like, oh, it's like this is this version of that kind of death or whatever. I don't know. So yeah, I guess that's where I am. Like, I don't know. I just kind of thought it was okay, which I'm sorry. It kind of, these kind of reviews are maybe not the most exciting because I don't really feel super passionate about it, but I don't know. I don't know if that's controversial, the fact that like I didn't love it, because it seems like a lot of people did, but I don't know. What did you think?
You've been a bit of a doubter this October, Tim. You know, there's been a lot of movies that you've been kind of lukewarm on. That
well, you refuse to do the movies that I like.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do Hellboy the Crooked Man like you wanted to.
You want to hear passion, and we do that movie.
A passion from your side of the fence. There's going to be a lot of passion from my side of the fence.
So prejudiced. You haven't even seen the movie. Look at you, judgy.
I'll be in a coma over here while you ramble on about the Hellboy lore or some shit. Anyway, there was buzz, right? And I went into it knowing that, and not really knowing what to expect. And there was that kind of weird feeling early on where I'm like, wait, this is a lot like Immaculate. This is really weird. How close this is. It's funny because as a prequel, there's two things that stuck out to me as feeling very prequel-y in a way that annoyed me. Although admittedly, one of them was only kind of, well, it wasn't in hindsight, but it was made a little bit worse when I realized the character was someone. But there's one really egregious scene that's a bit too referencey to like something that happens in the first movie. But I will say I think I'm more positive than you are. And it's not because I think the story is particularly impressive. I think the story is just fine. But I think between what I do actually think is very good direction and a lot of good visuals and a good performance from Nell Tiger-Free, who plays the lead character, Margaret, I think she especially gets better as the movie goes on. I think the first half or whatever, she's fine. She's I would argue maybe there's a slightly better job of than Immaculate early on, because I think at the start she's a bit more. I got a little bit more invested in her as a character a little bit quicker than I did in Immaculate. Although Immaculate definitely rises to arguably higher highs by the time it wraps up. But there's definitely some scenes as the movie goes on where Nell Tiger-Free gets to kind of unleash a little bit, and she gets to sort of really do big moments and big performances, and there's little things in the performance that really sell a lot of moments, between how the director chooses to cover a moment and between how she chooses to perform a moment. There's moments in the story that I think have a lot of like weight to them in the scenes, purely just because of how they've chosen to portray it. And I think that goes a long way to making this movie feel put sort of punch above its weight in terms of like its story. What I think is also very interesting and something that's very fascinating is that not only is there a lot of like story parallels to Immaculate and obviously a setting parallel, but I think the thing that probably made it feel the most like Immaculate to me, which we'll talk about more in spoilers, is I think the themes are almost the same. The main theme of this movie is almost identical to Immaculate, and that bars some discussion, which is basically just to say, without saying what it is, because I don't want to spoil anything, I will say that quite often with horror movies, if you notice a trend in some of the things that horror movies are talking about, or like what they're exploring for the horror element, it tends to be kind of a mirror of something that's going on in the world and reflect on something. And I think that's very much what's happening with these two movies. There's some real world stuff that's influencing why these movies are getting made right now. So
let's just say it's all about Netflix cracking down on password sharing.
yes.
You're right.
I did think that was a weird scene set in 1971 when they brought that up. Yeah, that was very odd. And yeah, it's 1971 because it is a prequel to the original movie. It's set before then, so we're in 1971 for the story. I'm fairly I didn't love it. I don't think it's a great movie, but I think it's a really solidly made movie. So I think I come out a lot more positive than you are. I do think there's some big moments that do work really well. If not from a visual direction point of view, there are a couple of like, oh, they just did that kind of moments that stuck out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely don't disagree with you either, but like because I think kind of like the point you're trying to make is like, this seems like it's way better than it ought to be. Like, it's a late era 6th entry in a franchise that, let's be honest, doesn't have a lot of great entries. So you kind of come to expect that it's just going to be this throwaway thing. And like you said, yeah, I think, the director's doing a really good job. The performers are doing a really good job. Like, I think the music was really good. I don't know. Again, it's just, I don't know. For me, it's just hard to kind of get in or care too much about like the story and again, the prequeliness of it. And it's not as egregious as a lot of other prequel stuff. Like, to be totally fair,
to be frank, I think it's not as egregious as 99% of prequel stuff. I think you're underselling it by saying it's not as egregious as a lot of them.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Totally. But I just think it's like we're already kind of starting off at a bad place because like I don't want to see a prequel for this movie. But yeah. Sorry if I'm being a downer. I'm not. Again, I'm not being negative. I don't think it was bad. It's just I was expecting to be like blown away or something because of some of the hype, and I watched it just like, oh, that's okay.
No. I mean, I think you're fine. It's just, it's like I think we watch bad movies, and I think it's very easy to.
What? When?
I think it's very easy to just
Green Inferno.
To have a. Yeah, name one that we did in 2015. That's a weird pull, but all right. Nothing we did in the last 6 months, but all right.
Well, I mean, that's the one that we're still getting hate comments for.
Oh, true. Yes, it's not got a passionate community around it for whatever reason. But we do a lot of bad movies, and I think it's worth pointing out when a movie is actually pretty good or solid, even if we're not in love with it. And I think. That's where this falls for you. I think I like it a bit more than you do, even though I'm not, I'm not putting this up next to, what have I liked recently? Terrifier 3 and a Violent Nature. Like, I don't like this as much as those. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's pretty solid. And I think in compare it to Immaculate specifically, which was again was a movie that I thought was good and by the end kind of stuck out, but had a little bit of a slow start. Like quality wise comparing the two, I think I probably like Immaculate a little bit more for the sort of ballsier ending, but
Yeah.
I think this one might arguably have some more nuanced moments in the story. But it's actually really weird. They're very similar quality wise, actually, which is also another really weird caveat to this comparison between them. I think they even out about a similar. Not to spoil my score later, but I've got a funny feeling I'm going to give this a very similar score.
Yeah. No, it is very strange that, and I wonder too if that's part of it. If I had seen, this before Immaculate, maybe if it would have seemed a bit more fresh or something. Maybe would have.
Yeah, but it's not like you were that like positive on Immaculate either. You were kind of similar in that one.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, we are hand holding buddies in that one.
I'm just saying, it's not like Immaculate got this glowing review from you, and this one feels like this is the one that feels like it's a copy of the other one, And
that's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, where do we go from here?
I mean, spoilers probably, but although having said that, a couple of things to mention first. So cast-wise, we have Nell Tiger-Free in the lead role. She is pretty good. I know her from...
Is she from anything else? Okay, you're going to say it.
Way ahead of you, Tim. Way ahead of you. Yes, I know her from the Amazon show that Nicholas Winding Refn did, Too Old to Die Young.
Oh, that's the one that Brubaker wrote on?
Yes, that's exactly the one.
Never watched it.
She apparently was also on Game of Thrones and an Apple show called Servant, which I never saw, but those seem to be her big credits.
That's wait, is that the one that looks like a boy ripoff?
There was a baby or a doll baby or something. Yes, there was something going on there. Yes,
doll baby.
I believe Shyamalan had something to do with the start of that show. I don't know if he stuck around and has anything to do with because it has 4 or 5 seasons or something like that. I don't know if he's involved in all of it, but
maybe we should review every episode.
What?
It's not unprecedented. We've done it before.
Well, yeah, but you didn't have kids then, and I would rather have more episodes of Screams, and you're like, oh, let's just do a whole TV show.
Maybe that'll take up all of 2025.
Just in Servant. No movies next year, just Servant. Yeah, good luck with that. We also
throw a poll on the Discord, see how people feel about it.
I've got a funny feeling I know, Tim. We also have Ralph Ineson and his hard to understand voice as ever. I swear that guy's voice is there's just the major things he says I get, but there's so many little sentences that he'll throw out there that I'm just I didn't hear a word of that under that grumble, where the words just kind of mesh together. But yeah, he's got a memorable face and voice though. Horror wise, probably most known for The Witch, but
oh, that's right, of course.
All right, Tim, keep up.
Well, sorry, I don't run over to IMDb every time a new actor pops up.
The Witch was 2016, Tim. Is 8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 years is a long time. Am I supposed to know what I had for breakfast 8 years ago too? I don't know.
Yeah, but you've rewatched The Witch a few times since then, I bet.
A few, yeah.
Yeah. Also,
I remember Black Phillip, of course, but
a couple of other notable faces here that are in smaller roles. We have Bill Nighy and Charles Dance. So, a couple of sort of legacy English actors kicking around to give it some gravitas, if you will. But yeah, those are the names that I recognize. Obviously, there's some other faces in here. All the other nuns and whatnot, I didn't recognize any of them. But
there's only one nun I care about.
I don't actually know which nun you're going to say. What nun do you care about, Tim?
The nun.
No, you don't. No, you don't. This is head and shoulders above the nun, just to make that clear for any of the audience, or the Nun 2 for that matter, which was somehow even worse than the Nun.
Yeah, I do think I'm kind of nunned out at this point, though. I think we can give nuns a rest for, they've done their job. Let's.
Yes, we had 2 separate nun movies this year, and we had 2 nun movies over the last few years from the Conjuring verse. Yeah, we probably had enough nuns for a while.
Yeah, unless someone wants to make like cocaine nun or something. That might be fun.
All right. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Director wise, like I said, I didn't really know their name from much, but yeah, that season of Channel Zero was the thing that stuck out to me. Single episodes of a bunch of other stuff, but yeah, that's pretty much as far as the talent goes in terms of like people I knew or was aware of. But no, I will say it's a very visually well done movie. And maybe it's just because I was watching it in Dolby Vision or whatever, but like,
God, you're gonna brag about your TV again.
I'm not going to brag about the TV, Tim, but it did add
it was OLED, okay? Great. You watched the OLED movie.
You're the one that's bringing up all the TV details. I was just trying to say that the movie made good use of light and the way it would go from like a dark scene with like one candle to like a bright, like sort of cathedral looking set. Like,
I just want people to know what's going on when I reach out to you and I'm like, please, Peter, can I have $1 so I can upgrade my rental to HD? And you're just looking at the stack of Patreon money while you're watching your, 90-inch OLED 3D
whoa
smooth captioning TV.
Well, I wish it was 90 inches, okay?
Oh, someone's gonna clip that and use that against you.
Don't you think I wish I had a 90-inch TV? Of course I do.
I bet you wish you had a lot of 90-inch things.
I don't know, 90-inch seems a bit impractical for that. I'd have to wrap it around my leg just to put on some trousers.
We'll let the audience guess what we're talking about there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're stumped. No idea. Yes. Also, none of this conversation's ever happened. Tim's just whatever. But the point I was making though is the movie does look very good, and it feels like it uses light and dark quite well, and it kind of bounces between them. And one of the opening scenes is like a priest in the confessional, and all you have is that orange light coming through like the grid on the confession booth, and everything else is just pitch blackness. Like it looks good.
Yeah, I mean, again, like the biggest positives I have would be like the direction and the performances. I think they're both, well worth checking out for that.
All right, okay, we'll say spoilers then. So we can get on with things, shall we? Spoilers.
Let's do it.
For the First Omen, you have been warned. So yes, we have a movie about someone being forced to give birth when they had no choice in the matter. They didn't even choose to have sex, for that matter. Only instead of it being the second coming, this time it's the Antichrist, which
very different.
Did confuse me a little bit at first because, Tim, when we watched The Omen, it was made pretty clear that Damien was born of a jackal. I don't know if you remember that detail.
I do remember that.
Right?
That is a thing. Now,
that is used here to some extent, but there is very much a human mother. just for the record. Yeah,
I mean, it always seemed to me like, even in the first movie, I know they find like the skeleton and everything, but like I still always felt like that was a bit more of like a metaphor or something, like I don't know, like or there's some type of, I don't know, like I just can't imagine like an actual animal jackal like giving birth to a human baby. Well, in this like universe, like I don't know.
Technically, as we find out towards the end, it's a big demonic jackal that pumps her.
Right, like that makes more sense. Like that, I understand if you're saying like, oh, it was like a demon that impregnated a jackal demon or whatever.
That makes more sense to you. You can't wrap your head around a female jackal giving birth to human Damien, but for some reason, a big demonic jackal inserting semen don't breathe style into a young lady. That tracks for you.
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think he was using a turkey baster, but
it was a euphemism for his penis.
All I'm saying is I've seen plenty of jackal births, and I've never seen like a human head coming out
All right, I'm just going to gloss past that sentence. I mean, there's some interesting little things it does with the ending, actually, to sort of circumvent your expectations. But yeah, I mean, as we said before, the movie revolves around this young woman named Margaret, who arrives in Italy. Is taken to this orphanage where she's going to work with all the other nuns. They look after young girls, and that, of course, comes.
Sounds like your dream job.
Shut up! Why you gotta make it weird? So, the opening scene, though, is not this stuff. The opening scene is Ralph Ineson going to see Charles Dance, who basically is passing on the knowledge of what the church is doing, or what a group in the church is doing, and doesn't say it out loud, but kind of implies that, oh, they've got this young girl, and she's not quite old enough yet. And it's like, old enough for what? And it's all kind of building the tension of, like, something's going on, and he's going to investigate it. Now, what I didn't realize as I was watching it, although I did recognize the name, and it was when they said his name that I kind of wait a minute, is that the character from the first movie? Is that Ralph Ineson's character is Father Brennan from the First Omen movie. He is, he's the one who dies with the pole going through him from the church, which actually makes me a bit more annoyed at this opening scene in hindsight, because it's like teasing that death with him witnessing it.
I'm a little torn because, again, I think it's shot well. I think it looks pretty cool. I like the, little bit of him like walking away, and it's like, all right, I guess he's okay. And then you turn around and you see the big thing in his head. Like, it's cool, but again, I feel like, it does seem a bit similar to that death in the first movie, and like that's the kind of the stuff I don't like, where I'm like, all right, I mean, I know we're not just like recreating it, but
I mean, there's only 2 of those, and I think the other one's much worse than this one, because at least this one, like, is, because I mean, at first you think it's just a fake out, right? So Father Brennan's walking with Charles Dance, and this stained glass, like, and the camera really emphasizes these like workers who are installing a stained glass window up in some scaffolding up top, and you see some glass shatter and fall around them because it's slow motion, and you get this shot of the pole coming through the stained glass window. It's all very big and epic and biblical and blah blah blah, and then it seems to be fine, where okay, it's all ended, and Father Brennan looks at him and says, "Are you okay, Father?" And he's like, "Yes," and he turns around and walks away. And we can see the reaction on Father Brennan's face looking at the back of Charles Dance's head, but it's not until Charles
doing the little thing.
Aye, the cross thing, yes. The thing, right?
I'm not religious. I don't know what it's called.
I mean, it probably does have a name, but I think cross at least feels like I'm trying.
It might be like the sign of the cross or something like that.
But when Charles Dance turns around and we finally see the back of his head, we see that the pole actually kind of like it didn't impale him, but it kind of like slipped, or what's the word I'm looking for? Sliced off. It sliced off a chunk of the back of right at the back of his head. So we get this kind of gruesome effect.
Unfortunately, I do think it is part of the head that you need to live.
Like most parts of the head.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. And it does definitely feel like, because the movie's going to be such a slow burn, that they wanted to have a big scene like this at the start to keep the audience kind of like, excited, interested. Because I will say, if I have, my biggest complaint about the movie, honestly, is probably that the plot does not lend itself to having a reasonable number of deaths to enjoy. Because the original Omen, of course, is a better movie and is doing a lot more with its time, it does have a solid, good, like 5, maybe half dozen really good death scenes. And even the sequels that aren't very good have some memorable death scenes. This movie, it's not that it doesn't have any good ones per se, but there's definitely less, and it feels like the plot isn't like lending itself to them, because it's not about, anyone who gets close to Damien's getting killed.
Right.
That's not happening. So there's just less opportunities for it. So it is a bit more of a psychological horror movie about the main character uncovering what's going on. So I think you have to kind of like prep yourself for that going in and have your expectations in check for that.
Yeah. I forgot to mention it. I probably would say it's because it's I think it's just about 2 hours. which
It's a little bit long. Yeah, it's a little bit long.
yeah, it could be tightened up just a smidge. Again, it's not like I don't think it's like a super boring movie or anything, but probably just a little bit.
Yeah,
Just a tad.
Okay.
I guess what I'm saying is let me in that editing room.
No, don't do that.
People love my editing. Come on.
Hey, from what I hear, your wife had to hold you back because you wanted to do the circumcision on your son. Like, no, hold him back. He's too snip happy.
Snip happy. Yeah. So what the hell were you talking about? Oh yeah, the First Omen.
Yes, the movie that we're here to discuss. Yes.
Cut to bright-eyed woman by the name Margaret arriving in the city of dreams, Italy.
Rome, I think is what the word you were looking for there, Tim. Yeah, honestly, like just I want to skip ahead a little bit. All right, we'll talk about obviously like her character and the way she goes through the story and whatnot. But I do want to talk about the scene that's probably going to be the most remembered from this movie, which is whether or not it really happens or she's just having a vision is a little up for debate. But there is like a delivery room in the orphanage for any young women who need that kind of help. Right now, obviously, when we find out later that they are intentionally trying to breed the Antichrist for reasons, right. Well, that's one thing. But she walks past this room when there's a birth happening, right? And this woman's screaming. They've strapped her to the chair, and even before we get to the birth itself, there's even a creepy bit where they sort of give her some, I assume, anesthesia, or maybe it's like it's supposed to be that, but they're actually giving her something else because the way this woman smiles, like she's in the movie smile after they've given her is kind of surreal and creepy. Mm-hmm. But the visuals that we get here of a demonic hand coming out of the vagina does stick out.
I mean, it literally sticks out. You're right.
I mean, it does literally stick out. But it's that sort of thing where they sort of tease it, and they do this thing where before you get the money shot, if you will, of the full thing, they do this thing where, in like a movie, you'll sort of hide the genitals by having like someone just standing in the right place so you don't see it, right? They kind of do that, but they keep doing it slightly badly, and intentionally so. This is not a mistake, but they keep doing it in a way where you can just see the edge of something that you normally wouldn't see, and it actually, it's almost like a really interesting little meta like touch in the filmmaking, because it makes it feel more like, oh, I saw the edge of like her crotch there, and I don't feel like I'm supposed to see that, even though it's clearly intentional. They wouldn't have left it in if it wasn't intentional. And obviously it builds up to a full shot of this very creepy thing happening with the hand coming out. But because it gives you these little glimpses of just the edge, or you see just a little bit of hair, there to the side, and it happens like 3 or 4 times before you get like the big full shot. It does feel like almost more like I'm seeing something I'm not supposed to, even though you clearly are, but it's creating that feeling in the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't really complain. It's very well done. It's pretty cool, looks good. That weird demony hand coming out.
Possibly a jackal's claw, to be honest, if I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, that would probably make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a paw? Is it a paw? I don't know.
So then, does that mean is Satan supposed to be the jackal then? Because there's like a whole thing where it's like he has to mate with his own offspring to create like the Antichrist.
Oh, you're jumping ahead a bit, but yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, yes. At the end, it's implied that like the demon or the devil has taken jackal form on Earth, and then the jackal burns alive at the end, which I guess implies that that's the jackal skeleton that's in the cemetery in the original movie. I guess that's what they're doing with that. Yeah. Okay. So just to explain all this, since you brought that up, because it is, so what they're doing here is that they have been, and we find out because she's, the main character sneaks into like a research area and finds some files later. The church or this group within the church at least, has been trying to breed a woman, a girl who can be the mother of the Antichrist. And they are all daughters of the devil themselves. And that's what they've been trying. Basically, they've been using young women from this orphanage and like basically forcing them, like strapping them down and letting the devil come in and do his business. And like one of the quick shots you get at the start when Father Brennan's hearing about it in the confessional is there's a quick shot of like this woman who's blindfolded strapped to a table saying, "Don't let it touch me again," or something like that. So it's really, quite grotesque. It feels quite bad and like vicious and all the rest of it. But what they've been doing is they've been doing this over and over again, trying to get a child born on the 6th of June at 6 a.m., 666. And that one of them, if they survive, because all of them haven't, right? We see that there's been like 15 failures, and presumably that's one a year. So there's probably been like all these babies that just died immediately as soon as they were born and they didn't work. However, there is now one that is worked, right? And the movie kind of tries to convince you that Carlita, this younger girl who's at the orphanage, is the character who's going to be the victim of the actual, the Damien birth. I will admit though, as soon as they tried to tell me that, I immediately went, no, it's not. The main character is going to turn out to be the one. I know. It's the obvious thing you're going to do. There's no way you're not doing that, so don't pretend otherwise. But it's fine. Yeah. And it turns out, there's two of them, and she's the secret one that, But yes, the other part of it, though, is that to give birth to the Antichrist, the devil has to mate with his own daughter. And that's why all the daughters have the 666 somewhere. Carlita has it like in the roof of her mouth, for example, whereas our main girl, Margaret, has it on her head, under her hair, just kind of like Damien. But that's ultimately what's happening here. And there's a whole bit in the middle where her roommate convinces her to go to a disco to like have a night of fun before she takes her vows and becomes a nun properly. Seemingly she got roofied during that, and she was strapped down. The devil did his thing, and because it's a supernatural pregnancy, it happens like super quick and like almost within like a couple of weeks, so that he's born in the right time and all that. But that's the plan of this evil part of the church. The part that I've not mentioned, though, that I do think is an interesting thing they've added into the lore here, actually. There's an interesting little caveat that they've put in, which I do think is cool, is that the part of the church that's trying to do this isn't doing it because they worship Satan. They aren't doing it because they want Damien to grow up and actually rule the world. Although I'm sure some of the followers in the original movie and beyond did feel that way. The reason why the church is doing this is because no one cares about the church anymore, and they think that if real evil exists, if Satan's child's on earth creating hell, then people will flock back to the church. They'll flock back to Catholicism, Christianity, whatever, and they'll basically... And I think that's an interesting addition to it, because it kind of makes their motivations a little bit more fleshed out. But I also like the idea that the reason why they are forcing a woman to give birth and forcing like that on someone and that topic coming up is because they realize that they themselves like need to make themselves relevant again, right? They're realizing that they are useless old people that no one cares about, and they have to do this to force the world into caring about them still.
Jeez, why does that sound familiar?
That's my point, is that, like, you know what? The themes and the messaging of the movie are praised. Like, I think that's why, even when it falters, even when the plot's not, like, flowing perfectly, there's definitely some points in the story where it feels like it maybe skips a beat or whatever and just rushes to the next bit. And there's definitely a couple of pre-play moments where it feels like they just do a death that's too similar to one in the original movie. I think even with those caveats, I think the reason why this still feels like a solid movie to me is because it has something to say. It has a purpose. It has like clearly the creator's intent behind it is to talk about this subject in the same way that Immaculate was talking about almost the exact same subject. Ultimately, you know, a woman having her own control of her own body is absolutely the subject to this movie, as it was in Immaculate. And the forces above that try to control that and say, no, we're in charge. We're the ones that tell you what you can do. That's what the movie's about. And I think that element they've added into the lore is quite interesting, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Although I don't know, it does seem kind of weird because, like, in the other movies, though, like, I feel like there's never any sense that, like, you know, the Satan worshippers and stuff, like, seemed like they were part of the church or whatever. Or,
No.
I mean, I don't know if just once Damien was born, if, like, they just figured it out and...
Well, I think the implication in The Omen is that, like, you know, the supernatural forces around Damien basically started killing off anyone in the church that had anything to do with him being born. So I think
that's true.
The trail of people who, like, you know, made sure he was born for their own purposes like that, they all were dead or were so badly burned and scarred that they couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
You know, I don't think the evil nanny in the first movie is one of these people. I think she's just actually a disciple of Satan or whatever you want to call her.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my headcanon.
Well, and they figured it out because they probably looked in a telescope and saw some meteors flying by or whatever. And
nah, there's no telescopes in this movie. They didn't do any of that bullshit. And because it's set before the first movie, they don't really have to align with anything that's in the sequels. And I would say that if anything does contradict a sequel, I'd be like, you know what? I think that's okay. I think it's fine if this is just, you know, it only has to tie into the first one and that's it.
That's true.
That's fine.
Another thing, again, I forget if this is ever, like, specifically stated in the other ones, but I guess the Antichrist, like, it has to be a boy because, you know, she gives birth to twins and they're like, is one of them a boy? And then, like, once it is like, oh yeah, they're so excited. But
well, I mean, I think it's just implied in the other ones. Like, I just don't think they like. Yeah. I mean, and the fourth movie technically it sort of says, "Hey, maybe it's a girl." Oh no, she's just a vessel for eventually having a boy again, which is kind of what this movie does in a weird way. Although, not to gloss over what you just said there, that was a big well, not a big change. We didn't really know about it, but like it was a big addition. That when she finally has the kid at the end, there's twins. And they do a thing where, this one's a girl, and they all like get really tense and go, what about the other one? And then when the guy says it's a boy, that's when the Omen theme hits for the first time. Da-dun. Zan, zan, zan. It's a good needle drop. It's a good, you know, hit of the main theme. It reminds me in a weird way of when the Rocky theme hits in Creed. It's like right near the end. It's a really pivotal moment that makes sense thematically. Like that was good. I thought that was an interesting addition, especially since they then have the whole thing where Carlita like actually helps Margaret and the girl escape. So we now have this sort of like divergent part of the timeline now where there was a sister of Damien alive with Margaret and Carlita somewhere like in a cabin in the mountains or whatever it is.
So I'm assuming that this little, you know, scene that we get at the end, I'm guessing that this was in case they want to leave the door open for, like, it, you know, if this did really well or whatever, if they're like, okay, so can we continue the story or something? Which, I don't know. I guess it'd be interesting. I don't know where you'd go with it, but...
I mean, I suspect that's part of it. I do think the final moment's a bit weird, just because they really wanted to do a whole thing where, like, he reveals the name of the boy is Damien and like cuts to black on that. Like that's and you go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean that's just so frustrating because it's like, again, that's one of those prequely things where it feels like, you know, that's supposed to be such a shocking thing. Like she's supposed to be like. But I mean, that name only means something if you've seen the Omen.
Yeah, it doesn't
the original movie.
It does not mean anything to the characters. It's also weird because we know that from the age of the girl in this scene that this is probably around the same time as the original movie. That, you know, in terms of like Damien being about 5, so it's not even like new information. It's like he's been dating, like because literally she gives birth to him like earlier in the morning before Gregory Peck gets them, right? Yeah. So he was named Damien like within a day. Like this is not new information by this point. This is old information. And I think the reason why it stuck out to me though is because I do think that music hitting when they say it's a boy during the birth scene is such a good like tie-in to the first movie because it's, you know, it's the main theme. this is Damien, he's been born, we've hit that big dramatic point, and I feel like it's earned this moment, and the music links it perfectly, and that's it. You've had your moment of like, holy shit, this is Damien. Saying his name again at the end just kind of felt like, all right, sure, fine, whatever. That's it though.
Audiences aren't gonna get it. They're gonna be like, so what was the boy's name?
That said, though, if you want to complain about a prequel thing just doing something too similar to the original, we have to talk about It's All For You. We have to talk about
yes.
Because here's the thing. I don't even mind that she said that, right? So there's a nun who's acting weird, I'll just say, right? There's a nun that's clearly acting a little bit crazy. She even kisses Margaret in the face, which in hindsight, actually, I think it just seems like a random, like, crazy moment in the moment. But in hindsight, it's actually maybe a hint that she knows that Margaret's the one that's actually going to give birth to the Antichrist. But she goes up top, right up to like the top, the roof or the balcony up near the top of this big building, and she stands there and says, "It's all for you." I didn't mind her saying "It's all for you" because I thought, oh, I can't see a noose. She's going to set herself on fire. That's different. That's fine, whatever. But then she actually jumped with a noose as well. So it's like, okay, you had herself set herself on fire. I like that because it was different. But then you had her do the noose thing anyway, and she, not only does she fall, she goes through the window just like the woman in the first movie. And it just kind of felt like, okay, so what you did was then is you just did the exact same thing as the first movie, but you thought you'd jazz it up with a bit of fire, right? Like, that's literally all you've done here. This is by far the one moment in the movie where I went, oh no, you just did a really prequel-y thing that I don't like. Because, like, why does the woman in the first movie do exactly the same thing? All on the fire. Why is it the exact same thing in the original movie? It just felt like a cheap reference, and because we need to have another death, because it's been too long since we've had one, and, here, this like wake up the audience if you think they've fallen asleep.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree 100%. Like, it's, like, it's a little strange because, like, I don't think it looks bad or anything. Like, it's...
No, it genuinely looks quite good. It's just what it is the problem.
Yeah. And I mean, and I agree though. Like, even if you just be like, all right, let's just like lose a noose or something. Like, if all right, you want someone like drawing attention to themselves and killing themselves in front of a crowd of people, like, all right, yeah, it's very similar to the first one, but you want that kind of moment, like, fine, but make it stand out enough that it's not just the Leo pointing at the screen kind of meme. Like, oh, I remember that.
No, that's fair.
I guess though, like that is probably like the worst the movie gets though. Like at least it's not like that
easily
every
is,
5 minutes,
Yeah, I think it is easily the lowest point of the movie. I think is that moment. Some things I want to compliment though is so when they take her to the birthing room or whatever it is, it's just some place underneath a building. At the end, because she was trying to get away with the other priests, and the funny thing is she starts acting a little bit possessed, like because she was adamant she wants rid of the baby, right? As soon as she came to realize that she was pregnant and she has the Antichrist in her, she wanted rid of it. So they basically start making plans for an abortion, and it's when they're in the car where there's a car accident and she ends up getting out, and it's obviously fate is meant that she's right next to where they want her to be. I want to point out this moment, this shot. Because this is the moment where I think she's already done some great stuff acting wise. Like when she first finds out about everything and she freaks out, there's some shots of her like looking like through her hair, almost like The Grudge or something like that, where she's just sort of sitting there like very catatonic. It's very good stuff. But after the car crashes and she gets out, and because of the way it ends, I can sort of call this something. I can name it. This is the water breaking scene. But that doesn't happen until the end of the scene, right? And that is a big moment because she sort of goes down on her knees and you just see like liquid burst out from under her gown or whatever it is. But the way she's like physically moving in this scene and the way the camera is just I think it's on like a steady cam, but it's kind of rocking up, down, left and right and going backwards and forwards a little bit as I don't know, maybe spasming is a word I'd use to describe her body movements. Maybe more of like a sort of erratic pulse, maybe a better way of describing it. But it's such a weird moment, and because it doesn't cut, it just stays in one shot, and like she did this all in one take. It feels genuinely like a really cool moment that they thought about, they captured, and it's little moments like this that elevate it beyond what it could have otherwise been. It's these kinds of moments where it feels like, oh no, there's a director behind this camera who's thinking about what will make a good scene. Another one that sticks out to me, actually, I don't even remember when this happened exactly. I think it's when she's on the operating table and she's remembering what happened to her, which is basically the devil roofied her and like raped her, because that's effectively what did happen. There's like a shot of her imagining herself floating, but she's sort of like on her back and her hair's sort of like her head's down. So I imagine like someone's getting abducted by aliens and they're getting pulled up from like the stomach, right. So their arms and their head are back the way. It's kind of like that, but she's looking at the camera and she's just floating away into the darkness, and she's sort of like smiling the entire time. There's just some really good creepy little visuals like that I think are quite good.
That was really cool.
Yeah. I also really like that, they blindfold her again before like the devil comes out to sort of witness her give birth. Or actually, no, sorry. I think it's when she's remembering the rape. Actually, is she's remembering like being blindfolded and the devil comes out. I like that because it obscures her vision of what the jackal devil is, and we only get little glimpses of it. We only get to see a little bit of it here, maybe a close up of the eye kind of thing. I thought that was again a really smart choice, just to make it feel special and creepy and not quite show all of it, because it would be it might feel hokey if you just show a full jackal demon standing there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It'd be hard to take in. Like even when we see it at the end, like all on fire and stuff, like you're still not like just seeing it blatantly out there, like running around or whatever.
Yeah, it being engulfed in flames definitely helps obscure it a little bit, even though it is definitely the clearest look you get at the whole thing in one go. Because that's the moment where I realized it was definitely a jackal, because up until that point it was all just these little close-ups and stuff. I was like, oh no, it is jackal shaped. I've not forgotten the jackal part of this. They're just saying that the jackal was the father instead of the mother, which fair enough, I guess.
I wonder, kind of thinking about it now, I wonder if maybe like that's one of the reasons why she got the part. If they were like, I mean, hey, if she knows about tigers, she probably knows about jackals.
So because her name is Tiger, you think that had something to... Okay, all right. That's fine. We'll roll with it. Another detail...
I'm very tired.
that I really liked is that when she's remembering that night as well, and the sort of the blackouts coming back to her, because this is the thing, her roommate was in all this. Her roommate was the one encouraging her to go out and be wild and drink alcohol, which she'd never done before. So her roommate gets her drunk. Even the guy she dances with is in on it to like help kidnap her.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. Like that was like another thing that immediately reminded me of Immaculate. Like again, not the same exact thing, but like and like she even has like a kind of like a more reckless like best friend and stuff. And or I guess like not like best friend, but
I mean, it feels weird to put it in buddy cop terms, but a nun who doesn't play by the rules.
Right.
Although in this movie it turns out this nun friend is actually part of the villainous group.
Right. Yeah.
That didn't happen in Immaculate, but
right.
But yeah, I agree. It made me think of that as well. Another little detail when she's remembering that night is that you see a little spider crawling on her, right, when she's thinking about it. And I thought that was good, because if you remember back to when she woke up after that drunken night, that scene started with a close-up of this little spider on her eyelash, and then it walks away and like she wakes up, and even just something just an interesting little bit of direction here actually, and how they like did her hair for this scene when she's waking up after that night, is that her hair's kind of like, how did I describe this? It's like perfectly symmetrically like sort of laid out around her head, as if it's almost making like a star. It's a weird thing to describe, but I noticed it because it was such like a very specific visual. Like it wasn't just her hair was messy and all over the place. It was making like 6 or 7 specific points of like, I don't know, hair.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the sign of a good director though, is like paying attention to those little details. Like a scene like that is a lot more memorable now than, if you just had her like, wake up with perfect hair or something.
It just adds something to it. There's still these little visual touches throughout the whole movie that made a lot of little things just stick out or be more memorable or whatever. So No, I do. I really do want to compliment the direction. So as much as I said the season of Channel Zero they did was by far the worst one, it was mainly the story in that I didn't like. I don't remember if the direction was particularly good or bad. So
yeah, no, I mean, I like, especially like with, you know, TV stuff, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe it doesn't have as much, you know, they don't have as much control or something, or yeah, if they didn't write it, then they're just working with what they have. I don't know, but yeah, that was a pretty poor season. But I mean, it sounds like they did a lot of other stuff though, which is, you know, supposed to be good. So
yeah, no, I mean, like I really can't fault the direction in this by and large. I think what really sticks out for me is that the direction, along with the performances, but the direction especially, constantly elevates moments in this where I found myself enjoying the movie overall quite a bit, even though I don't necessarily think the story is completely like knocking it out the park all the time. Like, I do think the jump from Margaret sort of kind of like finding some evidence to her trying to like escape with the girl that she thinks is in danger, like that happens in the span of like 2 minutes, and then she gets captured and stopped, and then there's a priest that helps her escape. And to be honest, this priest that helps her escape, Father Gabriel, he's only been in like 2 scenes before this point, and I was like, wait, why you like, you feel like you're supposed to be like a prominent supporting character that I've gotten to know, and I feel like I've seen you maybe in 2 or 3 scenes, and you weren't particularly memorable in any of them. So that there's little things like that in the story that feel a little bit clunky, but a lot of the big moments and a lot of the emotional moments or scary moments are handled so well from a direction point of view that the visuals are memorable and the way the scenes build are memorable, that it was hard to be mad, because obviously you get the big wild scenes like the big demonic hand coming out of the vagina, but you also have just, you know, spooky moments here or there, moments where she's reacting to something, or we should probably mention the guy that she was dancing with on her drunken night that turned out to be in on everything. Paolo, yeah. She sees him like late-ish into the movie, and he tries to walk away from her because he clearly feels guilty about everything, and he ends up getting the Final Destination car death. But however, they do something a little bit different with it, because the director puts in a shot of like the headlights coming towards him before the, you know, because normally it'd be the shock thing where the car just comes in from the side and kills them. This does a thing where it gives you like just a split second of like a jolt of light, as if like he's like sort of seen it in the side of his eye. It made it feel a little bit different. But the main thing that's memorable about this scene though is that he gets pinned against the wall, right? He's not just hitting to the road. He's pinned up against the wall, and Margaret goes up to him and tries to comfort him and says, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay." And then without thinking about it, she puts her arms around him and like sort of like tries to move him and like pulls him away. And she walks out a few steps and then notices how horrified all the onlookers are at her. And she looks over and realizes that she's carried away his torso, like because the car pinned him up against the wall. So she's just ripped his upper half away from his lower half, and he is now dead. He is gone. And yeah, like that's just the car hit itself is fine, but that moment afterwards is like, okay, this is memorable now. You just did something kind of weird and interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree. I am at a point where like I do get a little annoyed with a character is like talking and not paying attention. They step out on the road and like immediately get hit by a car. Like, I feel like it's just been done so many times that it kind of bugs me a little bit. But if it was just that, I probably would have been like, you could have done better. But I do agree, the aftermath and like the legless body like had a nice bit of gore and stuff too. And I don't know if it like completely redeemed it for me, but I was like, okay, this is like cooler than I thought it was a couple seconds ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it needed to be redeemed per se, but like it, it was perfectly fine, and then it did something really interesting with the end of the scene. So, and I think most of the big beats in the movie have something like that, where they have a little visual flair, or they have like a weird or more over the top like sort of demonic moment or something. There is kind of like it's actually quite well done, but it's generic in the sense that it feels like it's from just more of a normal supernatural movie. There's like a scene early on where she's looking at like a coat in the shadows, and it turns into like an evil looking nun who turns around and like sort of gives her a jump scare. And that's all it is. Like, maybe you could argue that it's a warning that her roommate's like working for the bad team or whatever, but I mean, I don't know. It feels like, again, we just have to have a jump scare there because it'll be too long before the creepy stuff starts and the audience will get bored.
Yeah, like that scene, I wouldn't say I needed it, but like as far as jump scares go, I do think it's handled better than, a lot of other movies would. It
does look good. It's just really random in hindsight because I don't really feel like it ties into anything or whatever. So yeah, like we said, the big thing of this is that she wants to help this younger girl who she thinks is being mistreated by the church. She then finds out, of course, that she is seemingly the only survivor of this experiment to try and raise the Antichrist. By this point in the movie, Father Brennan's tried to tell her this, and she didn't really believe him, but she keeps seeing little things that are making her start to believe it. The nuns maybe like mistreating Carlita a bit more or whatever. Ultimately, though, she has the realization when she's researching it with the others, she realizes the baby in the photograph isn't Carlita because the birthmark's not in the place it is with her. She then figures out it's herself, and that all plays out. After the birth scene, right? So we do the whole thing, they're all excited, and I think one of my favorite things as well during the birth scene and how it's filmed is that when it gets to the actual, like, because they do a C-section, right? They cut open her stomach. It kind of like does this long shot of just focusing on everyone who's watching, and it's like all the nuns and priests and anyone who's helped like do this plan to like make this happen. The camera just sort of goes down them all in this big line, and they're all standing in their sort of druid-like coats and cloaks. And I thought, oh, this is a really interesting thing. We're not focusing on her in this scene. We're focusing on all of the evil people who are forcing her to do this. And I thought that was, again, an interesting touch. It was almost like a sort of name and shame. Like, here's everyone who conspired to make this happen. No?
I guess I didn't think about it too hard, but that is kind of cool. Yeah.
I mean, I liked it as a choice. But basically, after she's given birth, and Bill Nighy, who's been like a father figure to her, comes over and she's like, please can I hold him? Can I hold the baby? And he's like, oh, of course. A mother, like he should know his mother, right? Yeah. But she's also eyeing up the scalpels that are like next to the bed, and you're like, oh, she's going to try and do it. No, of course, I'm thinking, I don't know. I think you need 7 daggers, especially for this. If you're going to kill Damien,
That's a good point.
Maybe he's not at full strength yet. Maybe you can kill him if he's just out the womb. But regardless, she does stab Bill Nighy in the neck, and she tries to kill Damien. She sort of holds the scalpel to him, but she just can't do it, right? As much as she knows in theory that this is the Antichrist and all these things, she just can't quite bring herself to do it. And, they get the baby back, and she's, left to bar. In fact, that's the other thing.
Her, like, roommate or whatever stabs her, and then they get Damien. And they're like, yeah, we got him.
We got one. We finally got a boy. We got Damien. Because the roommate who was meant to be like her best friend throughout the movie, like betrays her, kills her. I mean, we already knew she'd betrayed her because she was in the whole plan, but like this was like the punctuation on that. And the evil nurse just says, leave them both for dead. And I realized what they meant by that. I was like, oh, they mean the baby girl as well. They don't even want the girl. And I think that's actually kind of maybe the interesting thing about them surviving here, and Carlita coming in to save them, and like them saving the baby as well, is that they've done this thing where even though this baby technically is also the daughter of Satan, right? This is also a satanic baby. On some level, like, she still has sympathy for her, because just like her, she's been used and discarded. Like, she means nothing. So like, there is kind of a symbolic thing here to me of them choosing to, or at least her choosing to keep this baby and raise it, even though she didn't want to get pregnant, even though she obviously didn't agree with the whole Antichrist thing. It's not her fault, and she's choosing to raise the girl anyway. That is kind of fascinating in a lot of ways. Now, if they ever do decide to do a sequel to this, where this is going on at the same time as The Omen or whatever, I don't know what you do with that, because Is it just about people trying to come and kill her? Because I mean, that's the thing Father Brennan says at the end is like, hey, they know you're alive. They're going to try and hunt you, right? They're going to want you all dead. So is it just a movie about them like thwarting off like assassins from the Antichrist cult?
I mean, if it's the same people involved, like that could potentially be kind of cool. That like the only thing I wouldn't want is like it would have to be its own separate thing. If it like I wouldn't want them to do one of those things where it's like, all right, while this is all going on, we keep seeing like all this Damien and you know, like stuff in the background, and then like, you know, trying to line up with like the first movie or whatever. Like that might be a little annoying, but
yeah, I mean, because I actually didn't mind how they tied it into the first movie in terms of linking up at the end. You know, it's like so you see like you know, the priest and the nun in the car, and they literally use a photograph of Gregory Peck and say, hey, this is the ambassador. He's going to have a tragedy, and you sort of see a little bit of them taking like the wife's baby and, you know, not killing it, but like taking it away from her and like implying that they're going to do that. And I'm like, okay, you know what? This was a tasteful way of doing it, because you used a photo of the real actor. You didn't show like a recast person. You didn't try and recreate a moment. You just kind of gave us enough to link in.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, you know, some CGI face of.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, that would have been so tacky to do that. And yeah, I am judging any other movie that's done that trick recently. Thank you very much. So. Yeah, I do think the way they did it was solid enough. And again, it's why though I think that final moment of they named him, his name is Damien, dun dun dun. Like again, all of the link ups that you needed, you had, and they were done quite well. So that final bit felt a bit weird. Like the scene itself is fine. Like him saying, "Hey, they know you're alive," and us getting to see that they have survived for 5 years, and this girl's now a 5-year-old like Damien is. And this is like an all women household, and it's like, hey, we can't trust anyone else. We have to do this ourselves, and they find strength in that. Like that's kind of nice, right? And it's a running thing throughout the movie that Margaret is there for Carlita, even though everyone else sort of like sends her off to like the bad room and locks her up and keeps her away from the other kids. Margaret sees something in her. She sort of recognizes something of herself, because, you know, I had visions when I was your age. I was kind of the troubled kid. Which is actually kind of a hint that she's also one of, the devil's daughters for potential Damien breeding. It's a weird sentence, but that's technically that's accurate.
No, I gotcha. Yeah, like the little Damien sting at the end. It just, whenever I see stuff like that, it just makes me feel like, I don't know, just this kind of cowardly act where.
It's cowardly. I agree with that. It's cowardly.
But it's just like you have no faith in your audience. It's like, all right, I'm sure they understood everything in the movie up to this point, but did they know that baby was supposed to be Damien from the other Omen movie? Like, you know, it's like, no, like we got it. And then it's just not like, that's not the way people like, I don't know. Like, I think talking.
The problem with it as well is that anyone who understands all the links to the original movie already knows it's Damien by this point, because it's obvious, right? That's the whole point of the movie. And anyone who doesn't isn't like the word Damien's not going to mean anything to them anyway.
Yeah.
You know, there's like, Damien, oh, that means something. What's going on? So yeah, it is a weird, unfortunate choice in that moment. But like I say, I do think there's kind of an empowering aspect to this. I don't want to spoil Immaculate here, but Immaculate also has kind of like a dark, empowering element at the end as well. But this also has one in that these women kind of like are there to support each other and like raise this new girl who was going to be abandoned by the system that had no interest, you know, in or need of her. And I do think there's like, I think that's why this movie ultimately does work pretty well, despite any faults that I can throw at it, because it's key ideas and messages and themes that it wants to tackle. It does, and they're there, and it feels very genuine in its attempt. Like, while there's a couple of prequely things, it does feel like a movie made by a person with a vision. You know, it feels like a filmmaker's movie rather than just a product full of references for the sake of the references. I would have liked some more deaths, but you'd have to have a reason for them, which just wasn't what the movie was doing. So
yeah,
which is weird, because the one that we do get, the big one that we get is the worst part of the movie because it feels really forced. So
Yeah.
you know, I understand the double-edged sword that I'm kind of getting into with that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's just, I don't know. I kind of wish that I did like it more because again, there is a lot of like, you know, talent being put in there, and the director, you know, because most of the time when we watch stuff that's just like garbage, you know, generic like Hollywood crap that, you know, it just, it doesn't feel like anyone is trying that hard, or, you know, that there's really someone with that much talent behind the scenes. And like, yeah, this is an interesting movie where it's like, oh no, I think the person that's making this is actually like really good and the performers are good. It's just I'm just having so much trouble really connecting or caring about the story that much, even despite it, you know, having cool like scenes and set pieces here and there. Yeah, it's kind of it kind of annoys me, but I mean, can't really blame the, you know, filmmaker for that. Clearly, you know, it seemed like it, you know, it worked for a lot of other people, and again, I'm not trying to bash it or say it sucks, but I don't know, I just you know, I wish I was a little more into it, sadly.
Yeah, I think between the messaging being there for me, I think, you know, right from the get-go, it feels like they're trying to say something with the character. I even thought they were going to hint that the main character was gay at one point, because there's a moment when the roommate first is introduced and she's coming back from a night out, where she's kind of like watching her get changed, you know, from the door, and it's a little bit of tension, and it's like, oh, is this like, is she repressing some sexual feelings here? Are we going down that path? And it's not quite what happens, of course, but it was keeping me on my toes thinking, and the same way that Immaculate immediately got me thinking about, okay, this is a lot of this is about who this character is, right? Because at the start of Immaculate, they had this character say, oh, it's a shame she's going to become a nun, because look at her, it's a waste, she's so attractive. And so it got you thinking about like how people are looking at her, and how like what her role is in this male dominated like world that she's going into, and also the one she's left it from. Like, this movie kind of had me doing the same thing to an extent, where it was making me, you know, think about, okay, why this character wants to be here, why she's doing this, you know, what her, like, maybe, like, dark secrets are or desires are. It was making me think about her in that way, which is good. It shows good writing and direction, because it's got me thinking about the character on a deeper level than just they're there to drive the plot. So, you know, I do want to give due where it's earned. So,
I mean, yeah, I guess that's where we differ, because, you know, you like movies that make you think, and
you like Hellboy the Crooked Man, yeah.
Hey, I'm not gonna let you bash a movie you haven't seen. All right, that's you get
This is just some reverse psychology to make me want to do it on the show so that I can bash it properly, and I'm not falling for it. I will happily bash it without seeing it. I'm okay with that.
I just can't even. You're losing all credibility. Like, who's ever gonna listen to your opinions again when you just admitted that you will gladly prejudge a movie?
I mean, I'm just doing it to annoy you. Like, they understand the bit. They get why I'm doing it. It's just not. It's not like I'm giving it a score.
Well, all I can say is I like my Hellboy movie more than you liked your Alien movie this year. So, suck that.
Yeah, but you also gave the 2019 Hellboy movie like 10 out of 10. So I know that your opinions on Hellboy are delusional, and they could offer you any slop and you would lap it up and say, thank you, can I please have another?
Hey, sometimes you know, slop ain't so bad.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, I figured you didn't have a snappy one to come back with there. All right, Tim, what is your scene of the movie?
You know, I think I actually will go with the opening. I think it's a nice piece of business. It sets up, you know, the movie with a bang. I like the, you know, you got two like really good actors, and yeah, just the way it's like shot, the slow motion, the music kicking in, was pretty cool. And then you get a nice little bit of gore. So I'll give it up for that.
So what I seem we didn't actually mention it. That I may pick. I may not, but I think I'm going to pick the water breaking scene. That's my pick. But just to mention this other scene that we didn't actually talk about too much. One of the things that's going on in Rome that they bring up a few times is that there's a lot of protesting.
Oh, right, yeah.
And there's like at one point a riot breaks out when they've got the girls on a field trip to the museum, and they're kind of like trying to get through the crowd to get back to the bus to get out of there, try and be safe. And there's a whole bit here where Margaret kind of starts to like have a panic episode, like freak out. But she basically sees the hand of the jackal sort of like touch her and come round, and like I think it's even like the tongue is kind of like up next to her face, and it's all very kind of, you know, like foreshadowing for later, and kind of really heavy-handedly saying, hey, she's the devil's coming for her. Right, it's no one else, despite what they're saying plot wise. But I do think, mate, because the riots and the unrest are kind of one of the big. It's the movie's way of showing what the priest is saying about how, or the cardinal's saying about how, oh, people don't go to the church anymore. They don't trust in the church to solve their problems. They'd rather protest and riot than think of asking God for help. And so it's one of the ways they show that. But that said, though, I'm going with the water breaking scene, because the performance and the build up to it, all of it's just absurd. I mean, it's really tempting to pick the hand coming out of the vagina, don't get me wrong.
Right,
it's
yeah.
a very memorable scene. But I'll go with the water coming out of the vagina instead. So, who's your MVP?
I mean, it'd be really tough to not pick, what was it, Nell's Tiger Free? That's the name?
I mean, there's no plural or possessive. There's just Nell Tiger Free. You said that as if Nell's tigers got free.
I think maybe that's why it trips me up, because it sounds like that should be like a sentence. But I mean, apologies. It's a beautiful name. But no, I mean, she does a terrific performance. I mean, this is her movie, you know. You know, she really sells it, and it's again, another selling point is just how much you know, nuance and everything she brings to the character. She does a great job. It's
yeah.
That being said, I think I'm gonna go with Paulo.
What? No, you're not. He's barely a character again. Yeah, I was just thinking, I don't want to spoil Immaculate too much, but there's definitely a counter scene to like the water breaking scene, where again it's just Sydney Sweeney acting and like something's happening right at the end of the movie, and I'm just like, oh man, like, I could see like a face off with these two scenes like side by side, and like, I don't know, if they do some sort of crazy joke at the Oscars next year where they've got them both on stage at the same time, I expect shenanigans. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, it's just Margaret. It's Nell Tiger Free. I mean, I think she's good from the start of the movie, but when she gets to start properly acting scared or possessed later on, like it really starts to sing. And I feel like the character has a lot more depth by the end that I don't think I was expecting, because it feels like she sort of like finally has a chance to become powerful and like sort of fight back, even when she's in a position where it feels like there's no chance of winning, and then she gets to win. She's rewarded with someone coming to help her, and you know, gets to go off. So I like the empowering element of the story, despite all the bad things that happen to her. Like even after all that, she's able to still carve out something on her own terms, which is nice. So
sure. I mean, yeah, she's kind of badass by the end. You know.
All right, what are you rating The First Omen?
Geez, this is a tough one.
Well, let me ask you a question, actually, that may help you do that. Do you think this is the best Omen movie aside from the original?
I mean, we are probably gonna, you know, do a rankings episode at some point. So, but I mean, obviously, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's not better than the original, but I'm saying, do you think it's better than all the sequels and obviously remake? But like I said,
I would say so. Yeah. Like we said in some of the sequel episodes, like they're, you know, I mean, obviously 4 sucked, and the remake, but like, you know, 2 and 3 did have like some surprising like fun kills and some goofy elements that were entertaining, but I don't think either of them were made, half as well as this. Like this, there's a lot more, I think like talent and stuff, like direction wise and performances.
A lot more meat in the
that's,
bone, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd rather this commits some like prequel sins, I guess, but I feel like the other ones like commit like some sequel sins too, where it's just like,
I think they just commit some bad movie sins, to be honest.
I mean, sure. But what do you have my other Omen scores up
Would you
there?
like to know them?
Sure. I don't want to say that and then like give this like 2 points lower.
Well, you gave the first one a 9.
Mm-hmm.
You gave the second one a 6. You gave the third one a 6. Mm-hmm. You gave the fourth one a 3.5, and you gave the remake a 2.
Yeah, I put this just above the remake at a 3. No. Geez, it would be tempting to give this a 6 just so I can have 3 movies with a score.
Very good.
Of 666, but I do think it's a little better than that. I think I'm going to go with a 6.5, which I even feel a little bad about that because that feels maybe a tad low for this movie. But again, I think it's good and stuff, but I just didn't enjoy it enough to get me over that hump where like I think like a 7 is something that I'm like, oh, this is pretty good, I like it, I'll probably watch it again. And instead I think this is like, okay, this is like more like fine territory. And maybe it's just me again, I just had so much trouble really caring or connecting about the story that much, which I guess it holds a little bit more weight than some of the other stuff, which, because again, I agree with all your points where it's like, the director is doing a lot of things that are, I guess punching above the, their weight with this type of movie. So there's direction wise, performance wise, there's a lot of things to respect about it. But at the end of the day, like my enjoyment wasn't like super over the moon or anything. It's totally, it's fine. It's good, but it's, just not as crazy about it. I'm covering my ass so they don't come for it in the comments. You know that.
Oh, you're done. Okay, yeah, it's a solid 7. Is where I'm coming from. I don't really want to go above that. I mean, maybe in a repeat view, maybe it'll grow on me more. But I think it's good. I think it's a good solid 7, which is exactly the score I gave Immaculate, which is wild. I feel kind of ultimately about the same as both for different reasons to some extent, but still arriving at the same score all the same.
What's going to be tough is when we do like the best of the year episode, and then if we have like one slot left and then it's down to like Immaculate or this, it's going to be like, okay, which one do we choose?
That's true. I mean, if we were to do it right now, I think they would be both making the top 10, but we've got a lot to get to still before we're doing that in like March time.
Yeah. I mean, and the things with like, and when you say we got things left to do, like you mean like we got heavy hitters to do. We're not talking about
potentially great movies left to do. Yeah. Yes,
it's not like, oh, we haven't done Imaginary yet, so let's pump the brakes. Like,
I mean, that's also true. We've not done Imaginary yet, but there's other things that might be good that we've not done yet. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. But yeah, that's good. And I own this now, so I'm glad I liked it because it was on sale and the purchase price was only £1 higher than the rental price, and I thought I'll risk it because if I rent this and like it, I'm going to be annoyed that I didn't just pay one more pound to own it.
I do like when they do that because I'm like, yeah, what the hell, why not? And,
that's
and most of the time it hasn't disappointed me or let me down.
The problem is, Tim, is that Halloween 6 is on sale, and part of me's going, I should probably just get it for completion's sake, but it's Halloween 6. Am I ever going to watch Halloween 6 again? We've already done it in the show. I don't need Halloween 6.
Mm-hmm. So, I would assume that you would have had some type of box set or something already with all of them in it. That's not the case?
No, because the big Scream Factory box set that happened was after I stopped collecting Blu-rays, so I never get around to that. No.
All right. That is tough. I mean, I probably would get it just because the completionist in me would be like, who knows? Someday I'll have a huge marathon or something. But
yeah,
I understand.
If I don't
Is
get
it the
it,
producer's cut or?
just the theatrical, although the US iTunes does have the producer's cut on sale as well separately. I don't know if I care enough to own both, though. I'm not even sure I care enough to own one of them, never mind both. But arguably the producer's cut, maybe but it's inauthentic, though. The theatrical cut's this true stinker. It's the one that you actually go to show this is how bad it is.
Yeah. Yeah, like, is it worth that much if it's, like, not, like, a completely different, like, good movie? Like, if it's just, like, okay, this one's slightly less bad, great.
Yeah, it's not a compelling argument. Anywho, that's the show, everyone, pretty much. This has been the October Dawn. This is the final episode of October, though. This is the end of the October Dawn. Hopefully you've had fun with all the extra episodes, working through the Omen franchise and whatever else. Also for patrons who get this a day early, today they also get their final bonus episode of the month, which, if you haven't seen what that is yet, for some reason Tim decided halfway through the month, hey, do you want to do a Rob Zombie movie for the final bonus episode? So if you like the idea of... Now, we've not recorded this yet at the time of recording. I don't know how much I'm going to hate Lords of Salem, but I've got a sneaking suspicion...
Again with the prejudging.
I've got a funny feeling, Tim, I'm not going to like it. So if you want to hear what me and Tim think of Lords of Salem, the Rob Zombie movie, who I have notoriously hated everything he's made of, pretty much, you can get that on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. We're supporting the show and help keeping it coming, because I wouldn't be able to do this without all the support over there, or via YouTube membership. All of it helps. You get a bonus episode every month, and you also get even more stream segments at the $5 and up tier, which I think I had the grand idea of doing like several of those in October, and it's not really happened, right? There's probably been one by the time we get to the end of the month, but it's just because we've been recording so many goddamn episodes that like it wasn't the priority. But not to worry, you'll have like an after October report episode coming up soon on Patreon, so look forward to that.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm so tired. I was just like zoned out for a minute.
Yeah,
okay.
that even more we're going to do, Tim, where we talk about the different movies we watched that we didn't do for the show.
Gotcha.
Right? The After October Thorn report, I called it. That's not a catchy name. But
yeah, I watched some pieces of shit for that so far. So.
I've watched mostly pieces of shit, but one really good movie. So,
okay.
Well, I'll be excited to talk about that one. But all right. Anyway, that is the show, everyone. That has been Screams After Midnight. That has been our thoughts on the First Omen. We will see you next time for Trap, but this has been Screams After Midnight. Keep watching scary movies. Happy Halloween, and we will see you next time.